And I want to know, since you said like they are both different style of companies, I want to know their style of working and their what is their style.
They always did things the right way. There's always good documentation. There's a lot of education within the company.
How's the environment in companies like Google and Meta? Because you worked in both of those environments, right? And how one can excel, in those environments because they are surrounded by smart people.
So Google and Meta different style of companies. Meta, I've not been at both companies for a while, so obviously things might have changed.
It would be very okay to say that most of the acquisitions and merger happens in between expand and extract phase.
Absolutely, no, that's definitely true.
Hello, in this episode at Self-Published, we are joined by Arnold Noronha, the founder of Screenshotbot, an open source screenshot testing platform that is making the waves in the Android and iOS development communities. With the rich background that includes the impactful roles at tech giants like Google and Meta, Arnold brings a wealth of experience in mobile engineering and product development. At Screenshotbot is championing the importance of snapshot testing for better user experience and app reliability. We are excited to delve into his journey from being at big tech and then to a startup founder, solopreneur, and explore the insights he has gained along the way. So thank you, Arnold. Thank you for your time. And how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here. I am super excited to do this, tell my little stories. Obviously, everybody has their own little stories. I'm excited to share my little stories from my own experiences. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Likewise, Arnold. Like I was going through your, experiences, and I found it was so mesmerizing. From starting your career in India and then moving to USA and founding your own company, it was like a dream of every tech person who really want to do some this kind of thing once in his lifetime. I'm so excited to get your perspective and your journey and to understand how it happened, and also make it very to gain those insights and share with our people and learn from you. Thank you so much. So Arnold, how it happened and how is USA?
So I've been in the US for a while now. So I came here for grad school. I think at some point I didn't really plan to come to the US. Like I was, let's see. I guess I've been wanting to start when I was like even back in high school, but then I decided to go to academia. Academia didn't work for me, and then I decided to come back to tech. I went to, I spent some time at Google, and then I figured big tech isn't for me. Then I joined a startup, then I went back to a big tech, and then decided to make my own startup. So yeah, I think I do agree that the US has a lot of there's a lot of ability. It's just there's just so many people from all around the world that come here. It's just you have just so many opportunities to learn from people.
True.
And there's also so much infrastructure that you can actually do things easily. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a privilege to be able to be here to do a startup.
So with that, you were saying you was like skeptical about tech, and then you were thinking of something like in academia. But I was looking to your profile, and I was like, you did your undergrad in Chennai in mathematics and computer science, and then just next year you just got into University of Pennsylvania, and that too for your masters. It was like it was very planned that you did your undergrad, then you did your masters in US, and then you got the job in Google, and then you left it, and then you again joined a startup, and then you left it, joined Meta, and then you are founding your own, Screenshotbot, doing your own stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's like kind of very much, to a third person, it looks like very planned that you did everything. No?
Nothing was planned. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be a mathematician at some point. It turns out actual math beyond high school is really hard. And so then I decided, okay, you know what? I'll do maybe theoretical computer science. Turns out even that's hard. But I was good at programming. So But nothing is planned, right? At any point of time, I probably have like, I don't know, 4 months. I can see maybe 1 year into the future. That's about it. So yeah,
Okay.
nothing has been planned.
Okay, great. I mean, that's a good point. I just see one beyond the, one year in the future. That's it. I mean, many people are thinking of all the things for the 10 years down the line, and and I mean, nothing gets scheduled, nothing goes in that way. So I think it's good to be just having a very limited visibility, and just change your route based on how you're moving forward. So, like when you joined when you're talking about USA, right? You did your masters in USA, and when you completed your masters in USA, how is the job hunt happened? Like, how this job hunt happened? How easy it was, or difficult it was, or different than India it is to get a job in USA after your masters?
So I don't know how to compare it to India because I have done internships in India, but I've not really, I never really did the job hunt in India, so I don't know how to compare it.
Okay.
I will say again. I mean, sometimes once you get these little privileges of being, having a name attached, like University of Pennsylvania, then it becomes
True.
easy to get into Google, right?
True.
And then you have that name attached, and now it's easy to get into Meta. It's like
True.
it's really. I mean, sometimes it's cheating, right? If you get if you get lucky one time, then you can just use that to your
That
advantage in the
luck.
future.
True.
Yeah, so I was not expecting to get into Google right after grad school. I was actually pretty sure they were going to send me back to India. But yeah, luckily it did happen. So then I stuck. Yeah, I stuck here. Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're talking about that one, right? Because I assume that your startup is bootstrap because you're talking about saving the money for your startup, right?
Yes, it is
And when
bootstrap.
your startup is bootstrapped, you have to be very mindful with your money that where you're spending, because you have to, the durability matters, right? Because you have to stay in the market for a long time to sustain the startup and to gain the customer, because you don't know when the luck will start again, because you don't know when a big customer will come and then the things will change entirely. So the durability in a startup very much matters, and I agree with that. Since your startup is bootstrap, are you not looking for any funding or something, like some sort of like that, seed funding?
I have looked at it in the past. I have attempted to do things like Y Combinator.
Exactly.
I think so it's hard, right? I don't fall under the standard profile of a founded startup, like funded startup. I don't. For instance, I I am a very I am quite I am I have always been the kind of person to work kind of solo. No, I can work in groups. It's fine. But I kind of carve my own little solo thing to do, and that's not ideal for funded startups where they want like a group, like they
Team.
have team of co-founders. I think that has been the biggest roadblock for getting funding.
Okay.
Then I think to myself, do I want that additional complexity of having to answer to a group of people? I like my lifestyle. It's
And the
slow.
investors.
And the investors, yes, answering to investors.
So this will work when you have a co-founders, because when one co-founder is working on the product itself, building the product, one is focusing on marketing and investment sort of things,
Makes sense.
right? Because when you're all alone in solopreneur, I think, as you were saying, because if your sole goal is to build the product, it's a really distraction, as you're saying, to think
Right.
of the investors and other sort of things, right?
Right.
And yeah, I agree with that.
But again, I'm not saying that that's bad. I mean, there's all
Yeah,
sorts of trade-offs we do in engineering
exactly.
and life. So we just have to just pick and choose like what's working best for us.
True, true. Yeah. So, coming to the screenshot bot, right? But in this journey, we talked about you did your job at Google and Meta. Um, So when we talk about Google and Meta, the first thing that comes to our mind is very competitive environment. It comes in our mind that they are very bright minds, right? Because as you said, like if you're from University of Pennsylvania, the name on your resume of that university matters, and it opens a door for Google at companies like such. How's the environment in companies like Google and Meta? Because you worked in both of those environments, right? And how one can excel in those environments because they are surrounded by smart people.
Yeah. So Google and Meta, different style of companies. Meta, I've not been at both companies for a while, so obviously things might have changed.
And I want to know, since you said like they are both different style of companies, I want to know their style of working and what is their style.
So when I was at Google, it definitely felt very. They always did things the right way. There's always good documentation. There's a lot of education within the company. And probably this is a good thing from the company's perspective.
True.
But from an individual's perspective, it means you're not going to be as productive as you might want to be, because you're working within these structures that are designed to keep the company moving forward, but not really necessarily you as an individual contributing as much.
Okay.
After that, I went to a startup and then joined Meta. And so I would say Meta, or back then Facebook, I've never worked at Meta as Meta. It's always been Facebook. So at Facebook, it always, during my time there, it always felt like a big startup. So they managed to scale up their company in a way that still felt like a startup. People were productive. They were not really. There was a lot of chaos, and I grew to love the chaos. The chaos, like within chaos, a lot of amazing things in it. It's a completely different culture.
True.
And like with Google, everything is systematic. Facebook, there's a lot of chaos, but from within that chaos,
new ideas comes up, new things comes up.
Exactly. I don't know how it's now. I am on ex Facebook groups where I hear about how the company is doing now, and it doesn't feel like it is what it used to be. But yeah, at least when I was there, and obviously amazing people, right? You surround yourself by amazing people. It's hard not to enjoy the work that you do.
Right.
And as long as these amazing people, these amazing people understand like how I need to work, because, and there's not like you're not being pressured to work a certain way. Like there's a lot of pragmatism about how people get to work. So I used to be more of so in my team, people would say, well, there's this sub team, there's this sub team, there's this sub team, and then there's Arnold, right? Because I used to kind of work in a solo little thing. But they gave me that flexibility and freedom, and I don't think there's many other big companies that would do that.
Yes.
So I think that's really what Meta shined at, or Facebook shined at.
So basically, you were solo in the Meta as well. Like you prefer to work in a solo in Meta as well. It's not a new thing for you as a solopreneur. You're working alone. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I did learn some skills there too, because there I'm technically selling to engineers, which is what I'm doing today too. So there's definitely some specific engineering skills that you have to learn to be a little more if you want to be a solo developer.
So you're saying you were technically selling to other engineers in Meta?
Right? No, when I was an engineer at Meta, I was doing something like screenshot testing back then, and I was selling in the sense that I have to convince people to use the internal tool.
Screenshot testing, okay.
Right. So there is still some kind of selling happening there.
Got it. Those environment and those push. I agree on that. Yep. So we talked about Google and Meta, right? Like it's about how competitive it is and what kind of environment they have. the thing is like how, like when we entered into Google, right, you said like because of your university degree, the name of your university on your resume helped you, and then when you got those big tech name in your resume, it becomes easy for you to get into another big tech. But someone who is not coming from that particular history or background, we know about the all those YouTube feeds are full of how to crack job in Fang and Mang, right? What is your view, which you find that no, it is a very generic responses we got on the internet, but what is your view which makes you feel like, okay, if this particular, and I believe that you worked in a company in Google and Meta, and you must have had the chance to recruit people also. What was the one key thing you were looking at a candidate who were equally competitive, smart, but that makes them outstanding? That makes them, okay, if this key element is there in this candidate, there's a good chance that you will hire him or her.
So I did not do much recruiting when I was at either of these companies. I was very bad at interviewing.
Okay.
But since in the last couple of years, it's not on my LinkedIn, but I've been working with a company called Formation.
Okay.
So Formation, so I'm a coach. So I'm coaching people to get into these big tech companies. Some of them have landed into Meta and Google.
Nice.
So it's also a nice side income when I'm doing a startup, and I get to chat with engineers. Which, when you're a solopreneur, you sometimes crave interactions with other engineers, right?
Correct.
So it's like a really nice side gig because I get to chat with people, I get some side income, and I get to feel this nice satisfaction of seeing some of these people go on to do bigger jobs, right? So I do have insights into how these interview processes go because I have to interact with a lot of these people going through that process. I mean, but do I have any specific advice? Most of these people don't have like, not everybody can have you have to have. There's always going to be like this first name that you have on your resume that will help you get the next jobs, right? And not a lot of people have that. And I do think tech companies, the big tech these days, do a much better job of searching for candidates outside of the big universities, right? Although in the US at least, they're trying to roll back these DEI efforts. So I don't know if that's going to be true for long. In the last couple of years at least, the companies did a good job of trying to reach out to smaller universities. Try to bring in more resumes, and at least get them in the door just to get that first interview,
and give them the opportunities at least.
Right, because the big tech companies do want those people, right? It's like the name, like the university name really is more like it tells you that there's a good high probability that the person is going to be a reasonable candidate.
Yeah.
But there's so many other people who are going to be like much more fantastic engineers without that
university. Right? Yeah.
It's just harder to look for them.
For me, I think what we used to have the aptitude for the reasoning and mathematical kind of sort of things. I think DSA is similar to what goes for the computer programming, because if you have this DSA, it gives you that computer aptitude that, okay, you know the problem solving, things, and do you have those skills to solve the problem, right? So it is more of connecting it with the problem solving, that your mind works. Mind is prepared to work and to solve different kind of problems if it comes to you, rather than people argue for that hey, I don't use DSA in my in my daily job. That is a different part of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And so we talked about this one, right? Once we get into Google or Meta, and we talk about those separately, how one can grow in the Google itself, how one can look for what things someone should avoid or one should get into themselves to promote in companies like Google? And we will talk about the same for Meta.
Okay. This I would not be the best person to ask this question to, because I didn't do a good job working that internal promotion. Promotion,
Okay.
there's a lot of selling you need to do, right? You have to be you might think that, well, I'm doing a good job, so people are just going to come give me my promotions. It doesn't work that way, right? When I left Meta, that's when I realized, well, because that's when people came and talked to me, and I was like, oh, I just realized everybody else has been doing much better with the promotion game than I have. So yeah, it's I was like very focused on building things. My income was good enough that I was not like really worried about doubling it or whatever. So I was not really playing the promotion game. But you have to. I think you do, it is like being a startup, right? You have to constantly sell yourself. There is a skill to selling yourself. As long as you're satisfied and you're happy with the work that you're doing, that's a good starting point. Once you start growing beyond that, you may have to do more non-technical things. So do you want that work? Maybe you don't, and it's fine. You can stop there. You can be a most of the big tech companies have like a stopping level, so after which you don't have to keep getting promoted.
So for Meta, it is E5. So one who reaches E5, if they want to stop, it's okay for them and just focus on their technical craft. Good insight over there. Yeah, great. So as you were saying about, from the you did your snapshot testing. So what was your role in Google? Because when you Google, you moved to a startup, and then you were building the full stack for that particular startup, entire tech stack, and then you moved to Beta, and then you started the snapshot testing and building those frameworks and selling to other engineers and teams, right? Is it where the idea came for your own startup? How it happened? At what moment you realized that you have to open your own startup and going with this particular idea itself of having this snapshot testing?
Let's see. The idea for my startup came from my work at Meta. But when I left Meta, this was not the first startup that I worked on. And this is one thing that you will see true of most people doing startups. They succeeded on one specific product, but that would almost likely not be the first product they built. They probably built like 10 different products, right? And one of them took off. So Kent Beck calls this the explore phase, right? You've got so he calls it the 3X thing. So every company goes through 3 phases. There's the explore, expand, and extract. So when you're startup, you're exploring.
Explore, expand, and extract.
Yeah. So when you're starting up a new company, you're exploring ideas. You don't know what's going to stick, right? But there's not much growth. Then suddenly something sticks, and then you have like this big growth. So that's your expand phase. And finally, you're a company like Meta, where you're not going to have this big exponential growth, but you're trying to extract as much value as you can from the product that you have, right? And the skills that you need to survive in each of these 3 phases are very different, right? And startup people are really good at that explore phase, right? It's not that I left Meta and thought, I'm going to build this screenshot testing thing. I left Meta and I built a couple of different things. Once I start building it, I get more insight. It may not, in at least a few cases, I tried to bring it out there. But, and then you start realizing, the amount of work required to even get to a launch, even get to a shitty launch is just way too much. And so then I work on a completely different idea. Even Screenshotbot, after I built it, it took me about a year and a half before I got my first paying customer. And in that time, I kind of maybe even gave up on it, because I was like, I started working on other things on the side. It was only after I got the first paying customer that I went back to it and gave it a lot of attention and slowly built on top of it, right? But if I did not get that first paying customer, maybe I would have been working on something completely different today. That being said, Screenshotbot probably succeeded because I already had a lot of knowledge and insight about the screenshot testing world.
Yes.
Because I did that as part of my work at Meta.
Correct.
Right? I did screenshot testing in Meta. I built a similar infrastructure within Meta to handle screenshot testing. I built like the first screenshot testing library on Android. So a lot of insight, right? And that's probably why Screenshotbot succeeded. But it wasn't clear to me when I left Meta that this is the thing I'm going to work on, and this is the thing that's going to succeed. Yeah, I mean, when I left Meta, I was working on something more compilers related, like a Java interpreter. It's still a pretty cool idea, I think, but a lot of work to get to launch. So, so right now, but yeah. So wait, what was the question? The question was about
the idea that you got of a Screenshotbot, the product itself. How did this happen?
Okay, so I want to answer one more thing there. So remember, I said the explore phase, you're exploring a lot of different things. The important thing there is to make sure you're engineering your code and engineering your life so that at the moment you think of an idea, you can quickly test it out, right? Because when you get an idea, you're not going to be inspired by that idea for too long.
Exactly.
That inspiration sticks for a little bit. If you decide not to work on it, 3 days later, the inspiration is gone. You're not going to work on it, right?
Again, my very favorite quote: "Inspirations are perishable. Act quickly."
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So even though I worked on a bunch of different things before I worked on Screenshotbot, by the time I decided to work on Screenshotbot, I already had a lot of infrastructure. I already had a lot of code, so I could build a first prototype of Screenshotbot within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Right? And that's important. It's important that every time you get that idea, you be able to quickly test and build things. And the skills required to build a code base that allows you to do that is very different from the skills required to work on a big tech company.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's an important for startups. But anyway.
So we can say that 2 points I want to mention over here. The first point is, like you talked about those 3 phases that Back says, right? It's about explore, expand, and extract. So most startups, as we talk about the ideas itself, because I know it's if you talk about from the human psychology point of view, many people think of doing their own startups and they keep on exploring the ideas, and then ideas in the exploration phase itself, they decided that this product will not work, this product will work, kind of sort of things. And they did not open up with they did not come up with execution of that particular idea. So exploration phase, I think most of the people's aspirations of having the startup dies itself. Now comes another phase, which is when you have the exploration phase, you executed that, and then you're waiting for a customer. From my own personal experience, I can say that the moment you get just one customer itself, right, and that paying customer, no matter how big that customer is and how much money that customer is offering, but the motivation that first customer gives is of another level. It's unparalleled. Right? So when you say that you got your first customer after 1.5 years, I can connect with that particular feeling what you have got. And so then it starts with the phase of exploration to expand. Now you want to expand on that particular phase. That's where most of the startups grow. There was a phase of Meta itself, and the Facebook was growing, and then they acquired WhatsApp, then they built Instagram and all sort of things. So it was, in my opinion, if I have to look, that growth was expansion growth, right? It was expanding, right? Now you're talking about extraction. Most companies fails in, correct me if I'm wrong, if my understanding is not correct, that most companies fail to extract the business out of those expanding phase, and that's where they go plateau. Like if you don't know how to extract after expanding, I think your business will go plateau, and after some time it will go like the downfall starts. For example, Nokia.
Sure. I think that's it.
Or we can say can we say Microsoft OS? What they came up with the mobile OS for Microsoft. They had the idea, they extracted, they expanded, but I think after a certain period of time, it did not continue.
I think that may. I'm not spent thinking about the 3x in that version where the company fails. I've only seen the 3x with respect to a company that's still succeeding, because being in the extraction phase is still fine. You still have a big company that is still making money, but it's okay. So yes. So Ken Beck actually talks about this too. So even though you have this big 3x phase where it's like explore, expand, extract, the Nokia thing comes here where even within this big graph of explore, expand, extract, at every step you have a lot of smaller projects that are still working in the explore, expand, extract phase.
Okay.
Right. So even when you're in the extract phase, you have many other smaller projects that are still exploring. And if you don't have that explorations going on, then basically, then basically your risk is going up, right? Because because you're not really exploring new ideas that is probably going to, right? So I think that's where it comes in. I haven't spent enough time. Again, remember I said I think 1 year into the future, and I am nowhere near the extract phase, so I don't think of it, right? But I am very much in the explore or the early expand phase.
Yes.
That's where most of my my thought energy goes into.
With the AI coming up, and most of the jobs, I think the repetitive works which humans are doing, I think can be done by AI, and which is very much okay to say so. The businesses which are small businesses which are having 100 or 150 employees, for example, let's say, and they are having a lot of repetitive work, I think these businesses will be replaced by AI, and people will be more focusing on solopreneurship kind of thing, right? Where they are on their own, they are the CEO, they are like everything. So yeah, as you said, like there gonna be a lot of small companies that are one big companies. On top of that, which I'm looking to is like if you're working in a big company, right, in a big team. For example, if you're a solopreneur, right, or you're working on your own alone, you are the responsible for everything that is happening. Because when you're working on the company or in a big company or a big team, it's everyone's responsibility, and no one is going to take the blame, and everyone is just play the blame game, and that's the truth. And so I think anyone who is smart enough to know this will definitely prefer someone who is working on its own than a big company. Definitely big companies having a lot of brand values and brand name which they don't want to shatter, but there's a cost to it, because if things fails, no one takes the responsibility.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely true. By the way, another thing that helps is being open source, because that just makes, even though you're a solo founder and there's always a risk that, what if you get hit by a bus, right? Who's going to maintain things? Well, you can still give your customers confidence because your entire source code is open, and they can still survive using your tool even if I get hit by a bus.
That's right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, many companies are very much reluctant to open source because of the security issues. Can we say that, okay, this is one of the drawback for the open source?
It's not security. The issue is overhead. There's a lot of overhead that comes with open sourcing. It took me several months before I could even get the code base into a state that I could open source. Security is not an issue at all. The real issue is just you can write code in a very secure way. Make sure your keys are not there. In some sense, it's making me more careful about making sure that I am everything that I'm doing is super secure. Because if one of my customers come and see that I did something in my code base that shouldn't be the way it is, that's game over for me, right? So I want to make sure, like, there's a lot more responsibility to make sure that things are secure. But security is not that hard to do if you do it right. It's so I don't think security is the issue. The issue definitely is the overhead. You now have to make sure that your builds are compiling in your local setup, in your open source setup. You have people outside who are doing their own custom setup, and you have to make sure the build works there. Docker does make life a lot more easier these days for open source SaaS. But yeah, but eventually over time I built enough tooling that it doesn't add too much overhead, but that initial tooling does take a lot of time. I think from the moment I decided to go open source, it took me about 3 months before I was actually able to go open source, because there's that much tooling I needed to build for that.
Okay. So if you're talking about from that perspective, yes, because when you have your customer and they're gonna see your source code and they don't want to compromise their binary integrating your source code with, but any source code open source library which is available on the internet, correct me if I'm wrong, many people are very much hesitant to use that into it. So they really want some homegrown library which is there in the organization, like you were saying about like you were pitching your own snapshot testing library to other team in your Meta office itself, right? Like that. Then going with some random open source library where they are not very much confident about compromising, their own things if they integrate that. Is it true?
I don't think that's true.
And since we're talking about open source, and with your company, do you really see a lot of contributors to your own source code across the globe?
Not a lot. We do have a few contributors who have contributed across the world. Some people from some of my customers, some people who have used it in a really big tech company across the world. So I have gotten contributions, but it's not a lot. I think with open source SaaS, that is generally the case. You don't get a lot of contributions, and you don't want a lot of contributions, right? Okay. Because you don't want people contributing features that are going to be hard for me to maintain, right? So I still have to choose. I still have to make a balance that just because somebody is contributing a feature does not mean I want to accept it. There have been cases where I have to do that. There was one feature where I accepted it for a while, but I had to kind of remove it out. So yeah, supporting features that people build. I still have to make executive decisions about what kind of changes I want to contribute.
Yeah.
Obviously, bug fixes I will accept happily. So yeah.
And that too, you have to look for the maintainability of the code. So if there is a bug fix, right? If it is just a bug fix which will cause a bigger of code debt, you will not accept it.
So yeah. And now there's also a lot of smaller libraries that are part of Screenshotbot that people are using independently of Screenshotbot. So they are using these libraries directly as opposed to Screenshotbot itself.
Okay, got it. I was looking to that Screenshotbot website, and you were talking about that your library Screenshotbot is having integration with this Pointfree snapshot testing. Is it true?
That is true.
Okay, so it is like the snapshot testing is working with another library together to.
Have you used Pointfree's library?
No.
Okay, so yeah, so Pointfree's library, the way it works is all your snapshots are saved in your Git repository, maybe Git elements. But that comes with a lot of overhead because A, you have to save that somewhere, right? B, every time a UI developer makes a UI change, they have to go re-record your snapshots, right? And then C, those snapshots that you record on your laptop may be slightly different from the snapshots that you record on CI because your laptop may have a different CPU, different Mac version than your CI systems, right? So with Screenshotbot, your tests look identical. You're not changing your test. The only thing you do is when you send your pull request, your CI records fresh snapshots, uploads to us. We will just send you notifications saying the screenshots have changed, right? So it reduces the friction, makes it a very pleasant experience. and then you don't have to handle the overhead of managing Git LFS or something like that.
Understood. So like a large file system of Git LFS is get removed from your own repository, and then you move to the CI, and you are particularly saving those particular things on the images of the past and the present on the CI, and giving that reflection to the pull request of the developer that, hey, this is what it is. So this kind of hassle that we were having if we are having on maintaining this thing on our own Git repository gets removed.
Correct. Exactly.
Got it.
And people love using it because when a unit test fails, you'll always have somebody. Some people understand the value, but some people will get mad. Okay, why is this unit test failing? It's slowing me down. When the screenshot test changes, especially with Screenshotbot, where you get like a notification saying, hey, these are the UI changes, I have never seen anybody get angry at that, right? Because suddenly you have the automation telling you exactly how your change is affecting your entire app, right? So suddenly people are starting to love tests, right? And it's like a gateway drug to starting to do more kinds of testing. So and it's also because it's so visual. You can have like non-engineers who understand the value of testing, right? Because you just show the pictures, and then suddenly a manager is like, "Oh, I understand why you're doing testing now."
Yes. Got it. So like if we have to tell our viewers that snapshot testing is nothing but similar to UI testing, where in UI testing we do basically the flow of the UI based on the navigation and everything. Snapshot testing is based on the configurations that we set from the backend. The UI and the UX will change for the app. For example, if your user is a premium and non-premium, for a premium user, the UI will be some sort of different. The non-premium users, the UI will be some sort of different. And these changes, configuration that we are coming from a backend, snapshot testing will capture it, correct?
Kind of. So UI testing is usually about clicking buttons and things like that. Snapshot testing is really the only thing it does is making sure your UI is rendering correctly. So you might take your UI components, manually give it, or you can look at all your Swift UI previews, right, and convert all of your Swift UI previews into snapshot tests, which means that for any time a preview changes, you get notified. Right. So the only thing testing is the rendering, right? You can still have your unit tests separate. You can have your UI tests independently.
Okay.
What the snapshot tests here are doing are just testing that all your screens are rendering correctly.
Understood. So all the screens with all those UI components are rendering correctly.
Correct.
Got it. Clear. And since you're talking about the open source, right? When was this idea? This happened to you? You were in India back then when you were contributing to the open source.
The first time I contributed to open source,
yes,
probably in India. Correct. I had an open source. Sorry. 2006,
2008.
Correct, or even before that. So let's see. Did I contribute to open source in high school? I don't think I pushed any contributions. I think I did Google Summer of Code too, so I contributed to I was a regular contributor on a RSS reader called Liferia, which I stopped doing after a while. I contributed a little bit very little, as part of Google Summer of Code to Pigeon IM. I don't know if you remember that. I had my own little tool that I built. It's an online programming contest judge, which parts of the code are still being used for the International Olympiad in Informatics. It's being used for the not the international one, but the Indian team. I think still uses part of the code to test people. So I built that. That was like a build from scratch kind of open source project. And all of that was in India.
Nice. So that is like back in 2006, 2008. And those ideas, great. I mean, people are still not looking for contributing to the open source nowadays. But back in that time, I think it was like, were you having any kind of mentor or coach back then? Or it was just on your own, you finding it out? Things like that. Great. Done. So with this, I think Arnold, I would like to wind up our conversation. And it was like great talking to you and knowing you. Gaining those insights from you, that how this journey happened, how really things are working in a big tech, how difficult and yet enjoyable the solopreneurship is, what the things people should look for if they are going on thinking something like that, considering both pros and cons of solopreneurship. I think this has given a lot of insight to us and to our viewers who are really looking for these kind of informations. Thank you so much, Arnold. It was really you know lovely to have you on our show.
I really enjoyed this chat. As I said, I always love talking to other engineers. So yeah, I love talking about my own little journey. But yeah, I really enjoyed the chat. Thank you so much for having me on this call.